Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or tea, sit back, and let's chat about what's going on up in the stars above this morning. And today is one of those days where, wow, I am feeling very scattered. I'm sort of, in my mind anyway, jumping from one topic to another. There just seems to be so much that I want to say, so much that is going on in the atmosphere and in the field of energy that we all belong to. And where to begin, right? Where to begin that journey? Each day, typically, I start with the moon, and the moon being the most changeable of planets that we deal with in astrology, as every day it moves and or changes its face, in that it's getting larger. At this point, we had the new moon on Friday, so the moon is now a very slim crescent and is gaining in strength and in gaining in light. And so that's why I typically like to start with the moon. And then today there's just a whole lot of other minor kinds of transits that are going on. And then there's also all of the inner planets, including the sun, the earth, changing signs or changing gates, I should say, in human design. So that tends to change up the energy. It's like shaking the dice and rolling the dice, and then whatever lands is where you are today. And that's kind of what I feel like, that all of the planets are just sort of in this flux. We've rolled the planetary dice and boom, we are in some ways in new energy, but also in sort of that space between clarity of what is it we do with all of this now and the confusion as to, oh, bleep, what do I do? So if you're feeling that way today, don't be surprised. It is a day where the planets are just creating a bit of chaos for us. However, the moon is not creating much chaos for us today, even though she is making contacts to many planets. She's still in the sign of Pisces. And to me, Pisces energy for this particular day cools down all of the rest of this energy that's happening, as Pisces, remember, very spiritual. It's a water plant. It's a water sign, and it is ruled by the planet Neptune. And Neptune is pretty much center stage today, along with Uranus. So we have, sort of this cosmopoly, if you will, of planets that are going on and changes that are happening, but nothing's really set in stone yet. And that's where the scattered feeling comes from, or where that restless feeling comes from, because there isn't really any real landing place yet. It's like stirring the pot, right? But the vegetables aren't cooked yet, so they're still simmering and bubbling around. So we're simmering and bubbling and moving through things and changing and not quite landed. But we have some really good energy to help us through this. It just might take me some time to be able to tease through what all of this is for you. So let's try to jump in and say good morning really quickly to Asa. Good morning to you. Mimi, good morning. She says, missed you yesterday. We missed you too. I noticed that you weren't there, especially now that I don't need that moderator thing anymore, so I actually can see your name now. And welcome. Londa, good morning, my dear friend. Jacqueline, good morning to you. Marissa, good morning. Amy Moore, good morning. And those of you who haven't checked in yet but are out there, good morning. And let's break down this day and see what we can expect. So moon again in Pisces, but guess what? We're going into the void again about 5:08 p.m. my time. So for you all on the East Coast, this happens well into the evening, about 8:08 p.m. The moon turns into the void and is void through the night. In the area I live in, it'll be 3:51 a.m., 6:51 for you on the East Coast when it emerges out of the void and into the sign of Aries. So today's energy, while wonky and a little bit unclear, certainly comes clearer tomorrow as the moon moves into a sign that boldly goes, right? That moves forward, that takes steps. So we'll have the moon in Aries beginning tomorrow morning when we meet, and we'll see what that brings us. But for today, then the moon is in a square to Mars, which is another little bit of a jumbled mess, right? Mars is in Sagittarius right now, which is fire, and we have Neptune, or I mean, it's squaring the moon in Pisces, so we have water and fire, kind of creating some steam perhaps. We have a conjunction of the moon to both Neptune and then Venus. So we have, that's a little bit of the story behind that feeling of scattered or not clear, that shadowy sort of confused sort of energy that we feel is that conjunction to Neptune. Neptune is the planetary ruler of the sign Pisces. So there's more power here in bringing us into that spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, when you're sitting here parked in your 3D reality or your 3D body, sometimes it's hard to manage that influx of spiritual energy and to be able to work with both the physical and the spiritual. And that is really what the story is today behind the scenes, is that we're learning to be sensitive and tuned in, but at the same time grounded and in our bodies. So we're sort of working through two realms, the magical and the mystical on one hand, and the practical and the earthy on the other. And when those two meet, they meet in you, right? In each one of us, and that are physically involved in the planet. And that can create a little bit of that confusing energy. Now, later in the day, the moon will sextile Pluto and Saturn, our duo in the sign of Capricorn. And the last aspect then, as we go into the void, the moon drags that sextile to Saturn with it into the void. Luckily, that's happening mostly through the night. And the moon and Saturn in a sextile isn't a horrible connection anyway. It can make us more pensive. It can take us inward, right? We might be, as we fall asleep tonight, feel more inwardly drawn, and maybe from that place being able to see how we can build a platform for our spiritual self in a physical world. And that seems to be, that's a theme that's carried through from 2019 into 2020, is that building of that very powerful spiritual foundation along with the physical foundation that is being built, right? Being destroyed and rebuilt. So there's a lot going on, and days like today bring it up to us where we have this craziness. So think about it later. If you're feeling low or tired, go to bed early, right? Just don't worry about it. Just go to bed. Get some rest. That is a good plan in a void, of course, moon anyway. Or do some meditation or do some spiritual study. I got to tell you, the other night, what night was this? I think it was Saturday. Might have been Saturday night. I was feeling really restless, and it's pouring down rain. It gets dark early. So I had a bit, I guess, of what you could call cabin fever. It had been a long week of being at home, not going anywhere, not wanting to really get outside because it's cold and it's wet and it's windy, and you know the drill. It's wintertime, right? Here anyway. So I got out my color books. And typically I have my cat on my lap. For whatever reason that night, she wasn't on my lap. So I went and got the color book, my color book and my pens, and I sat there with that on my lap coloring. She couldn't get on my lap then. So I had a free lap, and I sat there and colored. And it was really good to feel that channeling of creative energy into something, right? Something that would produce color, would produce a beautiful picture, or would at least distract my mind from the craziness that it was jumbling up. So those are the things that we have to have. We have to have these tools at the ready when energies like today pop up, so that we can do something instead of getting into our heads, thinking about getting into, what is that called? That stinking thinking, where we go down this, whirlpool of craziness in our heads. So have something that you would like to do that can distract you from going into that hole. Or if you prefer, maybe you really do need to go into that deep dive and to work through. So you've got to listen to what's going on in your own body on days like today, or on days like I was having on Saturday, where I'm feeling so much, but not able to tell you what I was feeling, or, place my finger on what it was. So anyway, other aspects going on today feed into the sort of this frenzy of disclarity and discord, and what the energies that we've been sort of crazed about on this planet, right? The crazy shadowy energy that we've been dealing with. One of those today is Mars in a square to Neptune. We talked a bit about this one yesterday because Venus was also in a conjunction yesterday to Neptune. And today the moon is in a conjunction with Neptune and Venus. So we have, sort of this Neptune energy that's really piling up here, and it takes us into that unknown. And in that space of the unknown lies a well of creativity. And if we can tap into that well of creativity and bring it up to the surface for expression here in the physical, then we find we are feeling much better about the energy, right? It has a purpose, it has a reason for being. And if we are unable to do that, then we find ourselves scattered or losing focus, distracted, following our whims, like the next shiny object. Ooh, let's go play with that. And then not ever really getting down to the brass tacks of what it is that we're here to do. Now, today then also there are these minor aspects going on with Venus and Uranus and Mars and Uranus. We call these minor squares. One is a semi-square, which is a 45-degree angle. That's Venus and Uranus. The other one, Mars and Uranus, is a sesquiquadrate, which is a square and a half. So where a semi-square is a half of a square, which is a 90-degree angle, right? 90-degree square is the most challenging aspect that we have besides the opposition. And then we have these minor squares that are the halfway to the square and the square and a halfway to the next one. So this is where we have a lot of that tension and anxiety energy that might be residing. Now, if we can harness that tension, and if we can harness that anxiety and put it to work for us, then this energy becomes highly creative and highly imaginative and opens us to looking at new opportunities or to actually notice that there are a lot of new things that are popping up in our world. So instead of holding yourself to that old and the tried and the true, it's about being open to the new. This is a bit of a rebellious energy, restless energy. Remember, Uranus is involved. If Uranus is involved, you know that there is some disruption going on in the field. And we had that all weekend, right? So we dealt with that with the new moon that had some connections going on to Uranus. We dealt with it all weekend long, and we're still dealing with these now more in a minor, which feels like that, just that itch beneath the skin. I've had this nerve sort of itchy feeling in my hand, which is kind of funny, over the last couple of days. And funny, it's gone right now, but over the last few days. So it's like that nervous sort of under the skin, scritchy energy that sometimes we just don't know what to do with. So that's happening today. But if you can harness it, as I said, then you can move forward and you can expand into your new opportunities, whatever they are that are popping up for you. And they're there. Right? They're there. It may not be completely solid yet. It might be something that you've been thinking about. It might be the anticipation. Remember, last week's energy was all about the new human design year with the gate 41 in the gift of anticipation. Like there's something coming, something exciting opening up. So that's where we are basically today. It's that it was building last week. And then it broke, I think, over the weekend, and now we're dealing with sort of the minor repercussions of some of that. And some of you being more sensitive than others might be dealing with it for an extended period of time, which brings me to the idea here of the new Human Design Week, which is about sensitivity. So before I get to that, though, let's just take a look at what people are saying out here. Good morning, Amy and Linda Crouch and Debbie Hedden and Judy. Good morning to you. And everybody's saying good morning to everybody. Marissa says, I'm tired this morning, doesn't seem to have a cause. Oh, yes, it does. Neptune. There's your cause. Neptune. Mars squaring Neptune. And then we have the moon in a conjunction to Neptune. And so there's definitely this, Neptune connection that sometimes drags our energy into that lower place, into that quieter space. It's more introverted than extroverted energy. Vicky Pedroncelli, good morning. Judy says, yes, confused. Yes. Jacqueline Tyler, good morning. And I don't know what to tell you about your audio, honey. I mean, I can hear that there's audio. I don't know what to tell you. Jacqueline says, yes, that's how I'm feeling now. Judy, yes, everybody's agreeing. Jacqueline says, wow, I actually woke up at 9:30 when I'm usually up by 8. So you must be on the East Coast because it's only 8:15 here. so somewhere else, not here on my West Coast. Judy says, "Aw, sweet way to use your tools." I love that, don't you? Just, I mean, there's just something to be said. Unless you are someone that has art skills, like maybe you, Mimi, or maybe a couple of others of you out there could sit and freehand something or draw. That is not my gift. If you saw what I could draw, I could do flowers, I could do the sun, I could do a tree. But literally, the color book allows me to open up into color, a world of color and a world of artistry that I don't have access to typically, or at least my mind believes that I don't have access to. And of course, my art teachers also were very clear that that was not going to be the path of my career and profession when I was growing up, which is fine. I do have an appreciation for it, and I really appreciate people who have that gift. And in the meantime, what I do is I color because it's fun. And it's a good distraction, right? To use my hands and to be able to put color to a page that has a beautiful picture in it. I love that. Asa says, "I know what you mean. I made sun catchers and wrote 2 short stories, very creatively fickle." Great. Judy, good. So she's like giving you a thumbs up, Asa. Alisa, good morning. And everybody's saying hello to one another. And Allison, nice to see you this morning. Jacqueline, maybe she can come in and out for the audio to work again. It happens with Facebook. Yeah, then that's a possibility, Jacqueline Tyler. Maybe you need to go back out and come back in. Or if you have a headset plugged in, that could be a problem. I'm not sure exactly. Kathy Miller, good morning. And Colleen, good morning. And Mary Tapping Maskell, good morning. Great to see all of you out there this morning. Now, before I go on into the human design energy, I want to go back to our conversation yesterday about the Black Moon Lilith. And I'm dying to know, inquiring minds, Gemini minds want to know, how did you guys do in the considering of what you think your shadow might mean for you, right? Everybody was kind of putting that in there yesterday that, they wanted to know what that meant. And I suggested that you look at what it is that you reject in others, that when you express a certain energy, then you backtrack from, right? Remember the binging and the purging, where you throw yourself forward into a certain area and then you back it off because now I'm like, oh, I'm ashamed that I did that or what have you. That's your shadow. And so I'm just curious, did anybody find where that is being expressed in their lives? I do want to take the Black Moon Lilith another step as we move forward, not today, but on another day where we can really look at more of that shadowy energy and how it shows up in the houses and in the different signs. And I should share this with you guys. There's a wonderful book. It's an ebook and it's free to download that a woman named Laura Walker wrote. She is the host of the Oracle Report, if any of you have ever gone on that page. And she wrote a book called The Black Moon Lilith. And she does such a great job of expressing the mythology behind the Black Moon and the meaning of it, the shadow of it, and the healing process of it, and how it manifests in each of the signs. And it's a great read, and it may not make sense completely to you, but that's why we do these things in the morning, right? To help you make sense of these things. So hopefully I can post that up a little bit later for you guys, and you can download it. It's free to download and get a little bit more acquainted with the Black Moon and the myth and what it is meaning in the sign that it's in your chart. And remember, the symbol for that is the crescent moon, a white crescent moon with the cross underneath it. And that's the symbol for the Black Moon Lilith. So if you're looking at your own natal chart or transit chart, she looks, I'll see if I can get my camera to focus in. She's right here, and that's what she looks like, right? Dang camera. There we go. Okay. So any questions or comments on the Black Moon? Kathy Miller, good soggy morning, stormy, wet, and windy. It's my life. My friend had a lake in her backyard. I love a good storm, though. And here we're looking like we have another Pineapple Express headed up here to Washington. We get those often in the fall and the winter, where it's just like a river of water. An atmospheric river is another word that they call it, just blowing rain at us. And that's today, tomorrow, the next day. And I'm going hiking this weekend, so it better clear up for me for a little bit because I want to go see the falls, Whatcom Falls. It'll be just nice to get outdoors, even if it is raining. I feel, by the time we get to this part of winter, you guys might be feeling that too if you're, living in a wet or cold or snowy climate. This time of the year, I just crave getting outdoors, right? Just give me some sunshine even. But and those of you who are down in the south and you're filled with sun and warm temperatures, you're probably craving rain and the cooler temperatures. So I find myself in the middle of the summer craving the rain, and I find myself in the middle of the winter craving the sun, or at least the warmer temperatures. It's too funny, right? Okay, today the sun finally has made its move out of the gate 41, where we have been for the last week triggered with imagination and fantasy. And remember, that was all about the key that we held, that we could put in the lock and turn the lock and begin to really create and express into the physical all of the things that have been just lying up in our imagination and in our fantasies or in our dream world. So now, as the sun moves out of that particular area, we have another connection that takes us into the morphogenetic fields, maybe just a little bit deeper. We talked about the morphogenetic field. Remember, it's the invisible field or grid of energy around us that holds information. And many people tap into that information. It's streaming. It's like streaming video on your, Amazon box or your Fire Stick or any of those streaming services where you turn it on and it streams and you get to watch the show. Well, we also have a stream of energy around us that's invisible. The streaming content on your computer or on your television is also invisible until you turn it on, right? The on button or the, turning the show on actually gives you the stream. Well, the same thing happens here with this morphogenetic field. It is all around us. It informs us. And at any moment, we can tap into it, right? And that's what the sun at the gate 19 is taking us to. Now, this gate has a lot of different meanings, and it's sitting on the... I'll show you where it's sitting. Sitting right here, right next to the gate 41, basically. 41 was down here, and now we've jumped up 2 gates to the 19. And the 19 is part of a channel that connects over here to the emotional center, which, by the way, is turned on right now because Mercury is at the other gate. So we have the entire channel, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But the gate 19 is on the root center. So we have another impulse energy, right? We have another potential for stress energy here, that the stress to go out and do, because that's what the root center does. It pressures us to go out into the world in various ways. And in this one, this is the gate of sensitivity. It is the gate of intimacy. And the people that have this gate defined, if it's colored in, are highly sensitive beings. And that's not to say you all have the gate 19. All of you do. So we all have the ability to tap in. So it's whether it is white or black or red or connected all the way over, you all have all of it, right? So no one here on the planet is not sensitive. It's about whether you use that sensitivity and how you use that sensitivity. So the gate 19 has a couple of I think it's Richard Rudd that calls this the gate of the whisperers. And indeed, this is where your horse whisperers, your dog whisperers, your people who can, they can tap into maybe the communication, the invisible communication between creatures or animals, or in healing with other people. They're tapping into something, right? They're tapping into that, and they can calm a horse or get a dog to do what they want them to do, or they can tap in and find out what's wrong with somebody that's maybe lying in a coma, or who for whatever reasons cannot communicate what's going on with them. So we are all able now to tap in to the information field of the morphogenetic fields. I hope that makes sense, right? Sometimes you could tap in for the blueprint of what to build next, right? That was what 41 was all about, the gate 41, the sun there. Now we're tapping into the morphogenetic field for info, for sort of the way to feel our way into something for someone. And the other interesting thing that happens here at this gate is the people who carry this gate that by birth are very sensitive. And this is a place of deep vulnerability. And so if you have children that carry this gate by birth in their natal chart, then they're very sensitive to criticism. They're very sensitive to sound. They're very sensitive to vibration. And you may be angry and they sense it in you, right? They sense that in you. And they're able to feel their way into something that maybe you didn't sense yourself. So if they're raised in a family with that gate and that family's rowdy or raucous, or that there's always, yelling going on with the parent, it can really put a fritz on this child's nervous system, right? So the gate 19, this is why you should get charts for your children or your grandchildren, right? Because knowing that going into it would be make the difference in how you treat that child versus the way you would treat another child, perhaps that didn't have that. Now, I'm not saying that you should treat everybody differently. I'm saying that, there are certain things that you probably wouldn't want to do with that particular child. For example, speaking harshly. Now, this also goes for you as adults if you have this gate defined, and that there's that sensitivity to voice, to undercurrents, to what's said, versus what's not said, to the unseen realm. That this is a very magical and mystical energy as well, because we can tap into the unseen realms, like the fairy kingdom or the mineral kingdom or any of the kingdoms, right? The angelic realms. So the gate 19 is often highly sensitive. Now, it is also, in human design, there is a circuit that moves through that is called the mystical circuit. And it's a circuit that we all walk through in our reaching for enlightenment. The enlightenment gate begins at 54, also on the root center, on the other side, though, where Saturn has been recently and where Jupiter moves to in the next week. And that gate is the beginning of the adventure. And then it moves over to the 19. And the 19 is the sensitivity to see that there's something more to be seen than what you see. There's more to the world than meets the eye, right? It can't just be all flesh and blood and solid, that we sense almost from birth that there's something more, right? There's something more, something deeper. And the gate 19 is also in the gene keys, the gate in the shadow of codependence. And in the gift, it is sensitivity. And in the highest expression, it is sacrifice. And we're going to look at what some of those meanings are, because first of all, when you hear the word sacrifice, and then I'm telling you it's the highest expression, it, I think, sometimes can take us into a feeling like, how can that be, right? Sacrifice doesn't always feel really good to us. And the matching gate to the sun this week is the Earth at gate 33. Now 33 is up here. It is, it's on the throat center. So it's right here, and it's moving down to, I did highlight the right one. Okay, it's 33 is right here on the throat center, and it's moving down to meet the identity center at gate 13. So we move into February, the sun will move into the gate 13 and complete an idea that we're starting here now about this forgiveness and how we've forgotten who we really truly are. And as we fell into or were birthed into our bodies, that we could fall through the veil of forgetting. So we really forget that divine connection. And in the gate 19, or in the gene key 19, at least initially coming up through our tribal history, it is where we began to really look outside of ourselves for the answers to questions. And we began a process of anthropomorphizing, which is just a big, long scientific word that says putting human traits onto something outside of us. So it was the dawn of God or gods, and the idea of looking outside of ourselves. It started that shadow energy of forgetting that we hold this, right? That we're holding that spark of the divine. And instead of appealing to a God outside of yourself, the God of the rocks, of the water, of the seasons, etc., or the God, the bigger God that became, as monotheism came into the picture, it more and more creates that field of forgetting who we are, right? And we've become dependent through religions. This was the birth of religion, if you want to get back to, the very beginning roots of it, where we began a process of looking outside of ourselves for those answers, not within us, that we felt somehow separate from the divine, instead of that we were carrying the divine. So this 19 holds so much, right? There's so much to say about this very powerful energy. So of course, one way that we can look at it in a clearer light is to go to our Rosie Aronson book. She did such a fabulous job putting all of this into story, which, by the way, the earth is at the gate of the storyteller, right? Gate 33 is also a storytelling gate. It's on the throat center, remember? It holds the story of humanity. It holds the story of our evolution, the evolution of consciousness, how we've moved from those ancient and tribal roots to where we are now as modern man, and where do we go next, right? That's part of the story as well. So let's look at this. Here's the card for the gate 19. There's just so many symbols in this lovely face. I just want you to look at this face for a bit. So much here, right? Just the eyes alone, the light in the eyes, the woman's face, the little chubby cheeks, the rounded jowls. They speak to something, that she's holds secrets maybe, or wisdom beyond belief, right? So this is a beautiful card. And of course, it's got sensitivity with it. So let's read this card. This is by Rosie Aronson, by the way. The Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, 64 Faces of Awakening, which is referring to the 64 gene keys and the 64 gates in your human design. It is an oracle card deck. So it comes with the cards and it comes with this book. And you can get them too. All right, so the gift of sensitivity is about being highly attuned to the needs of others. In order to sense others and their needs, you must first become independent from them. That's a key here as well. Remember, the shadow is codependence. And here's the wisdom story. I was born in the old country where men took care of the money, women took care of the children, adults took care of the elders, and God took care of us all. Traditions and customs made up the fabric of our lives, and we didn't question them. When we were girls, when my girls were little, my sensitivity was welcome. They'd have a need and I'd meet it. For every runny nose, I had a tissue. For every cold, hot soup, and for every tear, a bosom to cry on. But as they grew older and as the world changed around us, my ability to sense what they felt and needed was shrinking. I'd give them good advice and they'd accuse me of not listening. I'd cook them a nourishing meal and they say it was unhealthy. I'd arrange for them to meet a nice boy and they'd refuse to come out of the room. I'd even pray to God that he'd protect them and they'd challenge he even existed. When they moved out, I called them every day. They called me codependent, saying they didn't want my worry. No matter how hard I tried to love them and be a good mother, no matter how often I told them how much I suffered in their absence, it didn't work. They just distanced themselves more and called me the needy one. Finally, I did the unthinkable. I turned my back on my own children. If they didn't need me, then I didn't need them. For a long time, I isolated myself and was miserable. Sure, I had failed as a mother. But eventually, my friends dragged me out of the house, a class here, a walk there. Then I started having the strangest dreams where animals would come to talk to me. Soon, to my shock, the spirits of dead relatives and friends started showing up in my living room, bringing messages for me to pass along. Word got out about my extrasensory gifts. Friends and neighbors started coming to me with their depressed pets, wilting plants, and unresolved grief. I became quite a phenomenon in the neighborhood. Even my girls were intrigued. Now they came over all the time. I'm having so much fun with my own surprising life that I let them have fun with theirs in their own way. They even eat my food and take my advice now and then when they ask for it. My gift to you. I am here to celebrate your sensitivity and all of the ways that you are attuned to the feelings and needs of the people in your life. Being of service is a wonderful thing. That said, when you offer your support, make sure that you are coming from a good place. Make sure you are happy with your own life and that you are not just trying to get your own needs met by meeting the needs of others. Woohoo! I can guarantee you people can smell hidden agendas. If you are isolating yourself because of hurt feelings, it's time to reach out for support. Your heart is too big and beautiful to close off for very long. Questions for contemplation, and there's quite a few here. Are you sacrificing too much because of your need to be needed? What signals does your body give you when you've been giving too much? Are you denying a real need of yours because depending on another's feels scary? Do you isolate yourself and then resent people for not supporting you? Are you clinging to your independence? What are you afraid might happen if you let yourself need someone or truly lean on them? And how can you find a balance between caring for yourself and caring for others? What is healthy sensitivity? And what is healthy sacrifice? Great questions. Great questions. Here's our very wise lady who's been through a lot. So sensitivity is very much an Aquarian energy, right? This is the sun at this gate, the sun in Aquarius, an Aquarius energy that is expanding consciousness. That is the purpose, really, of this particular air sign. It takes us out into new concepts and into new ways of behavior and sensitizes us to the cosmos. Sensitizes us to the cosmos. What more is there around us than what we see with our eyes? What do we sense in other ways? I know lots of you probably are tuned into your own pets, and as your pets are also tuned into you, and they seem to show up on your lap when you need them, or they are sitting at your feet and know that you must need some love, as you also feel that need to share with your animals, your plants, etc. We all have it. We've just forgotten it, right? So we're remembering that we are interdependent, right? That there's not, that we're not separate from, we're not codependent upon. And yes, independence is not a bad thing. It is actually the gift of this particular channel that's being triggered right now at the 19 and the 49. Woo, right, this whole channel right here that's defined. And that channel is teaching us about the gift of independence, but that the siddhi, the highest expression, is interdependence. And of course, the lowest is dependence or codependence. All right, questions, comments. Colleen, Pisces, 8th house plus Scorpio South Node. I totally fall victim to male wishes, even if it's not what I want. I realize reaching for the Taurus North Node will help me with the shadow, standing up for myself and recognizing I am a provider. Ooh, that's cool. Marissa, I did, and it rang true about, oh, we're talking about the Black Moon Lilith, I bet here. So Marissa, I did, and it rang true about how I view myself or think others see me, also about how I think about material things. Interesting. Allison, Tom Jacobs on YouTube has a good video. Does Lilith have to be bad? He actually studies Lilith. Well, it would be interesting to find out which Lilith, because there are two. Lilith, an asteroid that is about our more female sexuality and the way that we express our sexuality, and then the Black Moon Lilith, which is about the shadow. And we use those terms Lilith interchangeably, but we're talking about two different things perhaps. So we've got to make sure. And I've not heard of Tom Jacobs, but I'll be taking a look and see what he's actually talking about there. Judy, I just can't get my house organized. I start and get overwhelmed. Do one piece at a time. Remember this, the Capricorn energy gives us the methodical, step-by-step practical approach. So you may have this idea, let's see, what did you say? Your house needs to be organized, but maybe start with a drawer, start with a closet, start with a cupboard. and move on from there, right? And in the process, you're also maybe being able to eliminate some things out of the that you've not used, and or that you know, just don't need anymore, and you can gift them to someone else, or you can give them away, or maybe it's time to, you know, trash them. It's all dependent upon what you're dealing with, but one step at a time, Judy, so that you don't get into overwhelm. You know, one of the byproducts of Neptune is overwhelm. And Neptune right now is also parked at the gate 63, and literally only parked there until the 30th, Thursday. And the gate 63 has been tapping us into self-doubt, where we doubt ourselves, our motives. We might look askance at other people and their motives, but most often we turn doubt in on ourselves. The gift in that particular energy is discernment, right? So Neptune clouds things up. So don't doubt yourself. Don't overwhelm yourself. Do things one step at a time, right? The antidote, if you will, to all of that nebulous feeling is to do something concrete and one step at a time. You don't have to do it all. It doesn't all have to be done tomorrow, right? Your life does not depend upon you having everything done by today or tomorrow. So do one step at a time. Angela have both Chiron and Lilith in my 6th house in Gemini. Wow, wow, wow. So a lot of the shadow that you're dealing with is giving away too much of yourself. And in the 6th house, that is likely going to have some ramifications in the physical body. It might be playing out in the workplace. I know right now, I don't know that you're actually working. I know you have a new one at home, a new baby, so you're probably working yourself a lot at home with kids and family things. But just remember to factor in yourself too, right? It doesn't do you any good to keep giving from a deficit, to try to make other people happy and fill other people's needs without first filling your own, right? That's really where self-centered comes in. It's where I have to fill up my own cup first, or I have nothing to give, right? Then sacrifice becomes the negative expression that we're all so familiar with, where we keep giving and giving and giving, and we never really take back anything. Right? We don't get in, we don't receive, we don't fill the cup back up. So make sure you're filled first and then be able to give. Asa, what does it mean when you have aspects to Black Moon Lilith? Well, like anything else, it creates a relationship between that shadow and the other planet and the other sign that's involved. So you can imagine, for example, some of the planets and Black Moon Lilith actually get along quite well. Black Moon Lilith and Uranus, for example, you would think maybe that would be a bad combo, but it really isn't. The Black Moon and Uranus type transits free us from that shadow. It brings it up to free us from it. But perhaps maybe a Black Moon with a moon, the actual moon, in some kind of difficult combination for maybe an opposition or a square might create emotional trauma based on that shadow. And so it depends on what the aspect is, and it also depends on the planet, because some of the planets like Pluto and Black Moon also get along pretty well, right? Because Pluto's idea is transformation. Uranus's idea is liberation. And the Black Moon Lilith is a shadow. So when you're being liberated from the shadow or transforming the shadow, it's a good thing. It gets triggered, it gets brought up, it gets moved. Other planets have a holding effect. So it can be a problem as it just keeps, it's like Groundhog's Day, which by the way is coming up, where the same things keep happening over and over again. So it really does depend on the aspect, on the planet, and the sign that the aspect is holding to. And of course, the sign your Black Moon Lilith is in. Elisa, Ashland, Oregon. Oh, that's where you live, Ashland, Oregon. And yes, I need the sunshine. I was through Ashland last summer. Pretty place. Pretty dry though in the summer. When I was going through there, it was 2 summers ago now. Oh my gosh, or this summer it'll be 2 summers ago. And there were fires. And it was bad, 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 bad. We were parked in Medford in Oregon at a motorhome park there, and we kept seeing airplanes, that the big giant, I don't know, 747 airplanes that are converted to water tanks, and they dive into a lake and they pick up the water and then they take it to the fire and they drop it. And that's what we were witnessing sitting there. And the fire was somewhere just outside of Ashland, I believe. Okay, Amy, yes, I have in Libra in the first. I also have the Sun and Venus in Pisces in the seventh. I feel like this was eye-opening for me. Woohoo! Wanting the wound of not having those partnerships is the part of myself I really show to others. I don't like it, but it is true. Ha ha ha. Camille says I crave buttercups in spring. Oh yes. Mimi, finally today we have a sunny day. Too much overcast skies slows me down. Joanne McKisson, hello cousin. Jacqueline, oh shoot. No wonder my mom was more vivid with her stories, as dementia is needed the title for this earth. I'm missing something there, Jacqueline, but I get it. Like maybe she's really tuned into that Neptune, right? She's in that outer plane somewhere. And Linda Marie, Kathy Miller, Jacqueline Lopez, wow, what it did for me. Actually posted a code in a group for the first time. That's cool. Colleen says, I have gate 19 defined. It's been a blessing and a curse, indeed. But as you move, as you get wiser, right, and evolve, this energy becomes more evolved within you as well. And you become more attuned to the animals, to the plant kingdom, to the unseen realms. And so it's an attunement. It reminds me of sort of Reiki, right? That, you get attunements and you get more sensitive and you get more tuned in to what's happening or what's possible. Debbie, blah, 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 looking to see if there's any other. I love that you guys are chatting with one another. Jacqueline's, I don't know who you're talking to, but okay, well, Jacqueline says, wow, this brought tears to my eyes. This is exactly what I've been going through for a while, trying to have them understand what I mean. Yowza. There's so much to say out here. Jacqueline saying, she says she has her 49 colored in red. And all of us do right now, by the way, have it colored in because Mercury is sitting there. And Mercury, that channel is an interesting channel. Wow, wow, wow. Because, and there's these multi-levels of things going on in this channel. It is the channel of independence. But in human design, it's also the channel of love and marriage, but it's also the channel of divorce. And so we have interesting energies that pop through in this field of sensitivity. And with the gate 49 at the other end, which is the gate of revolution and rebellion, you can see almost the potential to skew that energy and to have that energy being misused in, creating the difficulties when we are in relationship, when we become too dependent upon those people in our lives. And often, the reason this is called, by the way, the divorce gate, the 49, where Mercury is sitting, is because that energy tends to be sort of black and white. It doesn't have much gray area. And it's also very far away from the throat. It's way down there. It's in the emotional center. And it does have the sense that this person, the people who have this gate have certain expectations about the rules, about the regulations, and about the way things should work. And they are often the ones that want to upset the rules, right? They want to see the gray. But it can be very black and white sometimes. And then if it's black and white, but you've not communicated what your expectations are in a relationship, you can see it leads to a breakup. So for example, in a relationship between people that are, in a romantic relationship, there's often this expectation of monogamy. Certainly when we get married, that is one of the vows that we speak, right? That of monogamy. But what about the relationships that we get into where we're living with one another, or we have this committed partnership, but without having actually spoken those vows, right? There may be the expectation on both parts, but maybe only one person's part, that monogamy is a part of the deal. And then when someone doesn't stick to monogamy, your partner doesn't stick to monogamy, then there's hurt feelings, right? And it's a very hurtful, and I'm turning my back on you now. You broke the rule. But did you ever really communicate that that was the one of the rules in the relationship? I think sometimes we just expect that that's one of the rules, right? And that we expect that the other person also believes that to be the case, when in fact maybe they didn't, but we haven't talked about that. So here's an open invitation, even in this channel, for communication between people to make sure that you're all on the same wavelength, right? That you really are on the same wavelength. What if, and let's talk about a marriage where maybe the man is working and the woman is at home taking care of kids. And what is it? Maybe he has this expectation that every day he's going to come home and you're going to have dinner on the table, irrespective of the fact kids get sick or they're crying or they have other needs. You've got to take them to the, their baseball games or their football games or to school or to dance lessons. And you come home and you're exhausted, right? But the expectation is that you should be Superwoman and have everything done. And if there has not been that communication that says between the two of you, look, if you expect that that's the way things are going to happen, it isn't going to be that way, right? I can't be that every day. But it has to be spoken, right? It has to be spoken. And that's just a minor little cog in the wheel. So there, like I said, this is a channel with multiple layers. The gates involved here have multiple layers. And I also told you in the beginning of the show this morning that it wasn't just the sun and the earth that have changed gates. Mercury's changed gates. Venus and Mars have changed gates. So all on today, there is all of this new energy being injected into the system through all of the inner planets, which means it's causing us personally to be in reaction to it. Mercury is the one that's sitting at that gate 49, the gate of revolution or the gate of rebellion. Venus just moved into the gate 22, the gate of grace, and the gate of that Neptune will move into on the 30th. So Venus is sort of, and Neptune, by the way, was already there once. And this is one of those gates of involution. Some of you who are new out there may not have heard the conversation, this was weeks back, months back even, where we talked about the gate 22 or the gene key 22, which is about graciousness and grace. And it is on the emotional center, so it has mood to it. And mood meaning 1 minute we might be feeling very charming and graceful and gracious, and in the next we may not be feeling so much like that. And what do we do with that emotional energy when that wave is rolling through us? So we have this wave of grace or not rolling through us. And you can imagine how that affects relationships, right? You guys are in the know because you're here, you're hearing, this information. Other people in your life may not be so much in the know. And they're the ones that are maybe the reactive ones that then may trigger you into becoming ungracious as opposed to gracious. So a deeper study can go on there. The planet Mars moving into the gate 26, which is on the ego center, the will center, about the artfulness of using will appropriately. So a lot of energy changes for one day. Now that's not unusual. It's unusual that all of them change gates on the same day, but the inner planets, they move faster, so they are moving through the zodiac or moving through the human design template a bit faster than, say, a Pluto or Saturn or even Jupiter. So in that case, then we have to be more aware that we have this changeability that moves through us periodically, and today's one of those days, and it's upsetting to some people. It drives other people crazy. It makes other people tired. Other people get scattered or lose focus, and again, that really depends on how your own personal charts are set up. I want to go back to something that someone said here. Now I got to remember who said what. Amy Moore said, yes, I have Libra in the first, and she was talking about relationships, wanting the wound of not having those partnerships as the part of myself I really show to others. I don't like it, but it's true. So I wanted to talk about relationships for a minute because it is, these energies play out in your relationships, your friendships, your romantic partners, your children, your coworkers, people you meet on the street, etc., right? That's where these energies play out. And I was having a conversation with a woman yesterday, and we were talking about the mirror image, right? The mirror. And, I haven't mentioned that in a while, but it's a good time to remind you that when we are dealing with relationships, no matter what kind, what it is that you're seeing out there is the mirror of yourself. So when we're in a process of blaming or shaming, or even if it's ourselves that we're doing that to, it is a reflection that we're seeing, right? A way for us to see our own true selves more clearly. So for some of you who have that wounding and that shadow across that 1st and 7th house, or across Libra and Aries, it is really incumbent upon you to understand and tease out your truth from the field of other, and to be able to use the other as a mirror to see what's true about you, right? So, for example, if you're having difficulties in a relationship or in a partnership of some kind, what's the source of the issue there? What are you seeing, and why? And what does it mean for you? What does it tell you about you? Often, it is telling you where you hold, especially if it's the Black Moon Lilith, where you're holding judgment against another person, which is really to say that you're holding a judgment against yourself, right? On the other hand, it can be something that you see, a characteristic that you see in another that you really want for yourself, right? That you really would, want to be like. So using our relationships as the mirror to see what more is possible for each one of us is the high side of all of these crazy energies that we have. Instead of blaming or being the victim of, use it as a way to find out more about you, finding more and more about your truth and about what is true for you versus what isn't true for you. Becoming complete and whole, that's your job, right? And your relationships, the people in your life, have agreed to come to the planet with you at this time to help you get there, right? It's no mistake, right? Those people that annoy the heck out of you, those people that you love, those people that, trigger something in you, are all here with a purpose. You put them in your path to find out more about you. Okay. Anyway, any other questions? Take tons of deep breath. Jacqueline says, yes, do that. That's a great way. Good. Okay. So if anybody has any questions about mirrors, things like that, let me know. Let's talk about the Pleiadian-Earth energy of the day. Holy cow, I can't believe it's been an hour. And today is 11 healing energy, which was Ish in the Mayan calendar, the jaguar, or the holy priest, or the high priest or high priestess. In the Mayan calendar, I don't know that they had an idea of what that really meant, except to say that it was a very sacred position. In the Pleiadian-Earth calendar, it is really about how we bring spirit into matter, and then how we move between the mystical and the magical and the physical elemental 3D world. So we are merging our way through both, right? We're holding both within us. So this healing energy of the day really speaks to our needing to detach a bit from our own dysfunction, kind of stepping back and looking in, and in order to heal ourselves, but also if we're healers, we have to get out of our own way first before we can heal or be the healer to other people. This energy of today really reminds me of the Ho'oponopono, which is a sort of Hawaiian healing technique. And in it, as the story goes, a doctor healed an entire mental hospital full of people, maybe even the criminally insane. I can't remember exactly how that story goes. And he did it only by working on himself, right? Healing the imbalances in himself. And by forgiving, by loving, by, just doing all the work on himself. So we have to, what it really speaks to then is the need for us to work on ourselves first to be a clear channel for healing others. And that's what the healing spirit is about today. The 11 is a number of illumination, right? It strips away the illusion to help us see clearly, to help us sort of gain the awareness of the unseen realm. How amazing is it that that works in tandem with the gate 19 in your human design, where we become more sensitive to the unseen realms. And here we're gaining in that awareness of that unseen, but also how the unseen sits in sort of nestled within the reality of our world, the real world, if you will. And of course, the earthly reality as well as the magical and the mystical are both triggered with illuminating energy as well. So it is sort of a mystical, magical day on every level that we look at. Moon in Pisces, conjunct Neptune, conjunct Venus, the Venus in sort of the minor square to Uranus, and Mars also in that process. And then the Sun at the gate 19, the Earth at the gate 33, where revelation is possible. So we have some really good energies, but it can kind of upset our equilibrium a bit, right? If nothing else, it'll show you where you're out of balance and where you need to enact something to become more balanced. You may be overly in the physical and you need to bring in some more of that spiritual or unseen. You may be overly into the unseen or the spiritual and you need to ground it somewhat. So it's going to be as unique as you are how this plays out for you. Hello, Michelle. Good to see you. Jacqueline says, I share every day since I started watching you in hopes many more will come. Your explanation on all these gates and planets is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. And thank you all for tuning in and listening to the show in the morning. I really appreciate that. And definitely share the show with other people. It's great. You know, this is also broadcast to Blog Talk Radio, also on YouTube. So hopefully we reach a lot of people that are sort of out there that we don't see here in the morning show. Maybe they can't, be here at that time. But there's a lot of people that it reaches that contact me from time to time and tell me that, hey, I listened to your podcast. I wish I could be there live, but I can't. So it does have this effect of moving outward. I like that. All right, guys, take care. Feel your way through the day. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.